Well, hello, everybody. This is episode 6 of Spare Thoughts. And today we have our guest, Sara Shookman with Storyglow Studios. And I want to read your introduction because it's so impressive. I don't want to mess it up. But
I don't know that that's
necessary. No, it
necessary.
is very true. It came off your website too, so I cheated. I fine-tuned a little bit. But no, we're so grateful to have her here. And Sara is an Emmy and Murrow award-winning television journalist, speaker, and host. Once a news anchor, now a social entrepreneur. Always a storyteller, which is what's so intriguing to me. Sara cares deeply about nonprofit causes, cancer research, raising the voices of women, and advocating for the underdog. Her integrity opens doors, emails, and hearts. I love the emails and hearts, especially because you do. And so welcome. We're so glad you're here today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh my gosh, you're welcome. And we have Dana with us. She's behind the scenes today. So she's filming and making us look good too, like she always does. So she's back there.
A 2-woman show you are, yes.
That's exactly it. Thankfully, she has the technology because I do not. But anyway, so we were talking a little bit about, to start with, just kind of while we were chit-chatting and getting ready about traditions. And I think it kind of leads into, I know we want to hear a little bit more about your background and how you transitioned, but even just being moms and wives and having in-laws, we started talking about that. And with us, I have stepchildren. We have kids all over the place. They're grown. I know you and Dana have little ones. And it's like, I feel like our traditions are constantly changing and adapting. But with Christmas season coming, I'm all about like, I have one thing I will not give up, and that is going to church on Christmas Eve. So everybody can work around me because that's my thing.
That's going to be your thing.
I really think that it's important to keep that part of Christmas alive for me.
I mean, I think this season, the holiday season, brings up all of those things in families, right? And my husband and I both were very involved in our own individual family lives. And we were 30 when we married. So I feel like we were sort of, even as adults, like established in kind of what we did. And it's fun to blend those things, as you were saying, like to bring some of that, like, this is really important to me. I want to establish, keep that. And then what's new? And I feel like we've tried to be intentional with our kids around those things. Like, what are traditions? What do we want them to remember or say, our family always did. And it's even in, my daughter is now 5. It's interesting to see, like, just in those 5 years, like what's shifted or what's stayed afloat. But yeah, I think the holidays bring a lot of that up.
Yeah. And as my sister-in-law likes to say, the only thing that stays the same about change is change.
It's true. The one constant.
Yes.
It is. And trying to accommodate, all different kinds of families and different ages. And, we've lived through the pandemic and all of the change that brought and how we were able to celebrate and be together. And I think for us, it did kind of becoming parents at that chapter, which I'm sure we'll talk about as we get more into my story. It did influence a lot of things about what we saw as important, what we felt like we were really missing during that time. I agree.
And I think, sometimes I think everybody had gotten so busy, myself included, during that time. And it was a chance to slow down, to eat dinner together, to not be eating on the run and running to the next activity or, going to the next meeting or the next event. I think it really helped families in that regard. I know it was tough, like with Dana's generation, she was finishing college. So she missed her graduation, but I kept saying, but look at the kids that aren't having prom or high school graduation and getting ready for college in those ways and having big parties. So, there was good and bad there, but I think it really helped people figure out what's important and who's important in their life.
Yes. So I think for the next 100 years, probably we'll be figuring out how it impacted each of us in these different life stages differently. But for us, it really did drive home, like, how do we want to be spending our time? What did we really feel was missing? I guess I kind of think of it like it was like a forced elimination diet where they say that sense of like everything's gone, right? What are we really missing? What do we like wish that we had? And what are we not missing at all? And what kind of tell is that this is really not essential to the way we're spending time, which is our most limited resource.
Exactly. So Sara, we could talk all day, I'm sure, but I really wanted our listeners and myself too to know more about how your career path evolved from, what you were doing, getting into television, everything else in between, and then getting into Storyglow. And I really love the mission of that. So I want to hear more about that too.
Thank you. Yeah. So, I grew up in Akron.
Mm-hmm.
I am a native of the Portage Lakes area, Manchester High School graduate. Mm-hmm. And I think it was like 7th grade-ish when I first thought maybe I wanted to go into journalism. I just always loved the written word. I loved to read. And I didn't have that same creative bone in my body where I thought like, I want to write novels or something. It was like, no, I like telling real stories. And so I had a day where I shadowed a reporter at Akron Beacon Journal for Take Your Daughter to Work Day.
Oh, fun.
My parents did not, my dad worked for Merrill Lynch. My mom was an occupational therapist in the schools. I knew that I had no interest in either of their jobs. And so I had a teacher who was a wonderful mentor that I'm still in touch with, Mr. Ross, who set me up with a reporter at the Beacon. And it really did solidify this idea of like, oh yeah, this is interesting. This is cool. This is conversations with people. This has impact in the community. So that was the first kind of touch with it. And I was involved in newspaper at school, and I knew that I wanted to study journalism. So I went to Ohio University to do that. And I was also interested. I was a cheerleader. I was in musical theater and things like that. So I think the performance element of broadcast made that particularly intriguing to me. So I focused on that while I was in college, and I did lots of internships, Today Show and some other cool ones that, really helped solidify that was where I wanted to be. And I know we're Mac School, right? Dana is a Kent graduate, like great programs and great vocational training. Like I really felt like I had what I needed to get started upon graduation, and was a student journalist at WOUB while I was there, and got a job right out of college at the CBS affiliate in Knoxville, Tennessee.
Okay.
So
fun.
So I really started my professional career in television, which is, what I had been wanting to do for years beforehand. And it really was what I thought it would be, it was difficult. My first schedule, Tuesdays and Wednesdays were my days off. I worked every weekend. I worked every holiday. I was grateful that Knoxville was a city I had heard of, even though I had never been there when I got the job, because it was like, oh, okay, it's only 8 hours away from home, But it was such a great training ground. I made a lot of friends, and I kind of found what worked for me and what kind of my brand of journalism could be. And I had been an intern, so I spoke of those many internships, here in Akron with WKYC. Eric Mansfield had an Akron Canton newscast at the time. Yeah, if you remember that. They were right there on Market and Main. And so I spent one summer just working with him there and some of the reporter team that worked out of the studio, and loved that. So I had stayed in touch with him. And this is right before he went to Kent State University, and he helped open the door for me to get an interview back here when my contract was ending in Knoxville, and came back to work at WKYC in 2012. So, sorry, this is the long version of the story.
John said, wait, who is she? I used to watch her on TV.
There you go. See? Yeah. And then COVID happened, right? Yeah. And so at the time, I was 7 months pregnant with my daughter, Isla. And so March of 2020, they sent me home right away. And this was before it was clear that we were all going to go home. So it was like, wait a second, what's happening?
Right.
And I think I already
How dare you? I'm pregnant.
Yes. And I had this in my head, like defensiveness of like, no, but my career still matters to me. Right. And I'm not going to be one of those moms, whatever that was, in my head. And it was like, no, this is for your own safety. And then it
good
became
for them too,
clear
though, that they were so concerned for you.
In retrospect, I appreciate that very, very much. So yeah, all of these things happening at once. My daughter was born.
I have to ask, stop for a second.
Yeah, no,
First
please.
off, I love Isla. I love that name.
Thank you.
But we kept saying, oh my gosh, can you imagine being pregnant during all this? And was your husband allowed to come in? And like, I can't imagine having a baby during all that.
It was, we were watching all of that so closely. We decided when I got sent home from work, my husband he works in software development and custom applications. So he was also working from home. He had already been working from home like 3 days a week. His company went entirely remote and honestly never came back from that. And so he was home. And so we decided to kind of wall off. So we did not see anyone, like including our parents and close relatives during those like final weeks, just because we were like, this could happen at any moment, right? Like, and we don't want to get COVID. And right now we won't get it because we're not going anywhere and we're home and we're making it work. So we had a lot of friends and family that helped deliver groceries and of course Instacart and all of those wonderful things that helped us all. And then our parents, my mom and my husband's parents are retired. And so they were able to quarantine for 2 weeks, like before our due date, with the thought that, okay, hopefully they will be able to come help and, help us get acclimated to being parents for the first time. So thankfully here in Northeast Ohio, our doctor was with University Hospitals. We did not have to experience that where my husband couldn't be, with me in the delivery room. And I did not have to labor in a mask. They tested us for COVID. I was masked during that part. And then they let me, once it was negative, let me take that off.
Oh, good.
But it was a very different time, right? Yes. Because this was May of 2020 where this was the full shutdown, right? All the restaurants were closed.
Everything was in a panic.
Everyone was in a panic. And so we didn't know day to day what it might look like, but it ended up being relatively calm for us. And I had honestly friends that were sort of jealous of that sense of like, hey, wait, no one was banging down your door to meet the baby. You just got this quiet time with each other and with the three of us. We did not find out that Isla was going to be a girl. And so my husband does like have that sense of loss over that, like run into the delivery room, like it's a girl moment.
Yes.
That happened via FaceTime. But it was just a crystallizing chapter, like we've said for all of us, but for us, particularly as we think about work and how we spend our time and what we wanted to be doing with our lives. I didn't in that exact moment think, oh, I'm not going back to this job. I did go back to the job. But it made me start to realize like where I really wanted to be. And I think my husband's job changing, the fact that he was now a completely remote employee. And so when I did go back, which was later that fall, after my maternity leave was up, the fact that I got dressed and left every day and he got to stay home and the baby was home and my in-laws were coming over to help with her for a few hours while I was working nights. So we only needed a little bit of care. I was kind of jealous.
Yeah, I was like, going to say, wait a second, it's like, wait, I'm going to miss out.
Yeah. But eventually my shift changed and I ended up working days and I was doing the 7:00 news still. So I worked like 9 to 7:30 or 8 most days. So
while
long
she's
hours.
Awake.
And she was awake. And the older she got, she's now 18 months old or whatever, she's recognizing that I'm never there for bedtime. And I also became pregnant with our second child. And COVID was still a factor in this sense of my pregnancy was a bit complicated. And I felt this sense of like needing to protect this baby again, right? So I had some modifications and work. I was working in like a separate area outside of the newsroom because people were constantly cases were just circulating at that point in 2021 and early 2022. And so, when he was born, even then, I don't think I for sure thought like, this is it for me. But when I left and was on maternity leave with him, it really crystallized that, having this time with my now 2-year-old and my newborn at home was more important to me than anything that I had to do at Channel 3. And I think maternity leave can be, it's obviously a wonderful, important time for families, but I think from a career standpoint, it can also be a good gut check that you see that this company is able to function without you, right? Like you, that sense of responsibility you have towards your tasks and your work and your role there, you see like, well, they figured it out, right? Like, the place that you are not replaceable is at home, or that's the way that I felt very much.
I agree. And that's what I told Dana first off, so when I was 7 months pregnant with her, my job as a manager, I was a regional administrative manager, was downsized out of this company. Like they crossed the country, got rid of my position. And I was fortunate, but it kind of gave me that time too. And I'm like, well, how are they going to do this without me? Like we were saying, like nobody missed a beat. The life went on, the company went on. It was a 100-year-old company, so they don't care if I'm there or not. Somebody will pick up the slack and do it. And it was kind of like you said, but I was lucky though, because then I did get to really think about what to do, stay home with her, and really focus on her. And that's when Dana had Luca. It was like, she's like, Mom, I need to get this done. I said, your job right now is Luca. That's your 100% focus, because this, I know it feels like it's forever and is it bedtime yet, but it does go by in the blink of an eye, and you will really enjoy looking back on these times when he's little like this and knowing you were there and that you put him first. And and I think so many people just think that, oh, I'm whatever generation you are, like, oh, I want to make this myself my priority and all that kind of thing. But I think especially with babies, they can't do that. So somebody has to do that for them. And I think as women, probably you're younger than me, but in my generation, I was like, well, women should be career women too, and they should be able to juggle it all and do all those things. And but I think there might be a little trend going back, like, no, let's really think about, there's nothing wrong with being a mom or a stay-at-home mom or focusing on your children and your family first, and then, worry about how am I making these vast amount of money, which in the end, I think that's what COVID told us too, is that you don't need to be a billionaire. You can, you can survive on this and make do with what you have and really prioritize what's important.
I so associate with what you're saying, that it's that sense. I think there were a couple things, like this idea that 20 years from now, this was like a thing that, a meme or whatever that gets repeated, but like the only people that will remember you worked late are your kids. I think that stuck with me. I think this idea that honestly, I had been sort of afraid to become a mom. And some of COVID gave me protection from the FOMO I thought I would be feeling of my friends that did not have children yet, who were, on a European vacation or whatever.
Right.
No one was doing that when I had a baby, which made it a little easier for me, I'll be real honest. Because I thought, honestly, there were times where I thought, I'm too selfish to be a mother. And that was because I had wonderful parents, which is such a blessing. But I saw what they gave to my sister and I thought, like, that's what it takes, right? So I think some of it you learn on the fly, and some of it your priorities change, right? And so my definition of success changed quite significantly, and it was more around time than anything. It's like time is the finite resource here, so I cannot be two places at once. Where do I really want to be, and what's driving that? And I think to come back to my career journey, it was almost like two parts, because the first part was kind of separating this sense of self from Sara, the television anchor,
right,
at least, and I hope that I've been able to hang on to Sara, the journalist, because that continues to be really important to me. And then add in Sara, the mom, and find space for that role. The one thing that's so wonderful that, again, I think came out of COVID was this idea of you can't have it all at once, but you can kind of pick and choose way more than anybody in our past, and probably even when you were starting, and when you were becoming a mom. The idea of freelance work and the idea that you can kind of create your own as an independent, has so much more merit and is taken so much more seriously, and is a real value to outside companies too, right? In terms of consulting, in terms of all of these other roles. So that's kind of, first, it opened the door to me to see, and I do have a strong sense of self around myself as a professional, but it allowed me to see what that might look like in a different form.
Sure. And I think that's so true. And, it's so funny. I think that the word consultant used to be like, oh, those people don't do anything. They just, talk and then want, you to give them a big check. But what I found, and again, I was lucky because I could stay home with Dana, but after about 6 months, I'm like, I'm not a stay-at-home mom. I have a career experience, education, and I don't want to clean my house all day.
Same. And I wasn't cleaning my house. I was just going like, what am I doing? I need to get out of, I need adults. I'm not made out for just this.
Right. And so I started thinking, well, and I kind of did the list. What did I like about my career? What didn't I? And kind of did that. And I started doing a lot of different things at once. I was fortunate. I actually went back as a consultant for the company I'd worked for, doing some small events and conferences and things. And I thought, oh, I like this. That was on my yes, I like this part of my job list, because I used to do a lot of social things and groups and different tours and travel and customer service and different things too. But it got to the point I was trying to do too many things. And
Yeah.
I always tell the story too because when Dana was maybe 3, I said, "Come here, honey, let's do this." And she goes, "Not now, I'm busy." And I went, "Oh, well, how often am I saying that to her?" So
Mm-hmm.
that was a wake up call too. And you're like, "Oh," and I thought, one thing I learned is you can't do everything well. You have to pick something you're
Oh my
good
gosh.
at
Yes.
and focus on that. And it took me a long time and a lot of trial and error and different things and people in the economy and things came and went. But as I volunteered and got more involved, I realized, gosh, nonprofits don't have the money, they don't have the staff, and I can help them with my knowledge. And that's how I ended up doing those kind of things too, with the nonprofit and trying to help people, raise money, raise awareness, those kind of things. But I love your whole, you have to tell a story because that's the first thing people are like, I want to have a big gala. I want to do this. I want to do that. It's like, okay, but what don't people know about you?
Yeah.
We need to find your story, which I think is why we were drawn to each other too. And
Yes,
I've
it
always been the English history girl. So,
is.
I loved all those classes in high school. And, I always tell when I talk to high school students, take a speech class. It will really bring you out of your shell and help you understand how to communicate with people. And so, yeah, but that's, I think, what drew me to you too was this whole story glow and getting to people's stories.
Yeah, and you're such an inspiration, Debbie, in the fact that like you saw some of that so much earlier than the rest of us, and this idea of like how you can build something that is your own and create. I mean, you really had mastered your personal brand so early in a way, and that like led to your success.
Oh, thanks.
And your connections within the community and the way that you used that to create real impact. I think for me, the nonprofits, I had served in board roles and things during my time at WKYC, and I knew what they were doing in the community. And I also had this sense of like, those were the stories, the pitches that I got that I so wanted to do that we didn't necessarily have time to do on deadline with a ever shrinking staff, in this changing media landscape. And so I always knew that there were great stories and great value for nonprofits. And as you said, these are people with small budgets, they're on a shoestring and they're trying to change the world. And so Storyglow is really born out of that idea of like, how can we help them capitalize on those stories that they have to tell? How can we help them get them out there? The world deserves to hear that story, and there is such an appetite for it. It's just that sometimes they need help like finding the best voices to tell it or the best medium. The message is always more important than the medium in my sense. So yeah, that was kind of, I started working with just a few individual clients, just a little bit, kind of dipped my toe in and saw that it had real impact for clients. And that really mattered to me. And it all comes back to story. As you said, we are a storytelling species. This is how we understand each other. It's how we relate to each other. And it's what we need. And it's even how our memories work.
Yes.
When you think back to like what stands out in your mind, whether it's, think back to last Christmas, think back to what's your earliest memory, all of these things, they're all based in story. And visual memory is really important too.
I agree.
And I think the way the world is going, we're becoming, increasingly online. Video is an important part of that. And so that was where I saw this opportunity to help organizations on a mission, predominantly nonprofit organizations, find those opportunities to use their own medium. People are not watching the 6 o'clock news the same way they used to,
Right.
decades ago. Obviously, there's so much diversity in how people are getting information. But one of those sources is you, right? Is your organization and how you're reaching people. So trying to reach cohesion and use your story and make sure that you're telling that same story in a way that's really understandable. That's something I work with all of my clients on, let's try to get at the heart of what it is we need people to know about you and how to tell it and who should tell it. And then find ways, whether that's your email newsletter, whether that's social media, whether that's your website, whether it's event driven, it's part of the way that you structure your event or the mission moment where you're going to ask for donations at your event. All of those are places that we help create content for that all ties together and helps
Yes.
support the story.
I agree. And it's so true to know, people are like, how do I get to them? So I have this story, I have this great newsletter, this great website, this great social media presence, these fun events, but how do I get to people who don't know about us? And that's such a key, because you're right. I mean, you can, like I said, have 500 channels and see every kind of opinion in the world out there, but how to grasp someone's attention
Yeah.
that you need to know about you is such a challenge. And I get that question a lot too.
I'm sure you get this with the nonprofit professionals you're working with too. They're such a small team. They wear a lot of hats.
Mm-hmm.
And what I see is this curse of knowledge. That's what I call it, that they know everything,
Mm-hmm.
like so deep.
Yes.
They could talk to you for hours about their mission, or like the challenges they run into, or funding challenges,
Mm-hmm.
or, what their recipient or their end user is really up against. But sometimes that is like too
much information.
Right.
Yes.
For that intended
Like, stop
audience.
talking.
Yes. Yeah. Like now I'm so confused.
Now you're
right?
like, what?
Glazed
Okay,
over look,
yes.
right? So some of it is getting them to kind of pare that down a bit.
Mhm.
And the internet has made it easy to find
Yes.
what you want access to, what you want to put your dollars or your time, your resources behind. So how do you find that warm audience for you? How do you find the person that is like right for you? It's using some of those things that they're looking for. It's making sure you're talking to the impact you have,
Mhm.
but also transparently showing them how you're getting this work done.
Yes.
How small is your team?
Yes.
What are you doing with that dollar that you've raised?
Mm-hmm.
Telling those stories that maybe in a way we were not avoidant, but like
Mhm.
there were certainly times where we thought, well, we can just like gloss over that. Like, no, those are the details that really matter to
Yes.
people.
And it's so true, because I do these quarterly workshops, and we try to bring together professionals and just community members, nonprofit people, and we just sit round table and talk about these things. We just did one a week or two ago, and I talked about how the holidays are coming. I said, so go around and tell what your least favorite holiday is. And someone said Giving Tuesday. And I said, oh, thank you. She goes, it's not really a holiday. I go, but true. Like, everybody in the world wants you to give something on that Tuesday, but do they know about you the rest of the year?
Yeah.
And that's always my point with that too. And same with events. Like, don't just send a sponsor package. Someone gave you $10,000 and then, it's a year from now, we're having our next annual one.
Yeah.
Here's our sponsor packet again. It's like, what'd you do with my money last time?
Right.
Why did develop these relationships, and you won't have to keep doing so much work to keep people interested.
Exactly. It's a year-round project. It really is. You can't just jump in on a campaign. As much as end of year giving is important, and it's certainly important for a giver out there that's looking for something to do to create a tax strategy or something of that sort. But yeah, it can't just be that. They're thinking of someone that's already been in touch with them, that's already been developing that relationship and holding their hand, and they want those frequent touch points, because that's what sinks in.
And I think the other thing is, we'll get off this topic in a second, because I have a couple other questions I want to ask you, and we can talk all day. So I think the other thing I try to share with people is, everybody doesn't support everything. So, find those people that are interested in education, healthcare, homelessness, the arts, music, those kind of things. And then again, it's like helping people develop that. Well, how do we find those people, and who do we know that knows those people, and those kind of relationship building type things?
I agree with that. You're looking for warm leads, right? You don't need to attract everyone. And I think sometimes that, from a storytelling perspective, what that means with clients is like, it's okay to alienate some of the audience out there, because they're not meant for you.
Right.
They're not your people. So it's okay for you to take a stand on the issue that you support, because this is your mission, right?
Yes.
And I think that advocacy position is something that a lot of younger donors are seeking. I mean, that's what we see, like, that we talk a lot about, again, from a media perspective, like trust in institutions has changed pretty significantly, but people do trust individuals. So building those individual connections, and also giving that transparency, as I talked about, but making sure that, like, it's okay that some people unfollow you.
Yeah.
Because you took that position.
Right.
Because the people that are meant for you, they're going to find it, and they're going to stay.
And I always say, no is not a bad word, and no is a complete sentence. Like, you can say no and not have to say because, or well.
Moms need to know that. It's hard, right?
I know it is.
But you can just say no.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
So a couple other things I did want to ask, that I wanted to get to, because just on a personal note, tell us something about yourself that maybe people would be surprised to know.
Okay. That's like one of those like icebreaker
It
questions
is,
that I
it is,
hate.
but I know, but I love asking
All right.
them
I
because
do
you
tell
learn so
people
much about people.
you should have one of these answers like
Yes.
ready, right? So my answer to that, like what do people know about you in the minor detail, is that I have like every kitchen gadget known to man.
Oh,
I
wow.
like love a kitchen gadget.
Okay, good to
I could
know.
spend hours in like a sur la table or a crate
Uh-huh.
and barrel. Like my drawers are overflowing with this kind of stuff. And I like to cook, but I probably don't cook often enough to justify my need for these kinds of devices. But yeah, I think
That's so fun.
bigger picture than that. Number one, I'm an introvert.
Mm-hmm.
Extroverted introvert, I guess,
Yes.
but definitely more introvert. Like I know that what fills my cup is time to myself, is quiet time, and I know that walking into a cocktail party is my like most uncomfortable moment.
Isn't that so funny?
Once I'm in conversation with someone,
Yeah.
I'm okay.
Yeah.
But or if I have a job to do, like
Mhm.
I can go in and MC an event
Mhm.
of 1,000 people and not be fearful because I'm like, no, I'm on a mission. Like I'm
Right.
driven by what I need to be doing right now. It's that the fuzzy moment when you're like not sure, like where do I go, whatever, that I become like a
Yes.
wallflower. I just wait for someone to approach me and then I'm like, okay, thank you.
Yes. And that's true. And my husband always would say that because he's a more quiet person. And he would always say when we were together, but you're so social, you know everybody, and you're so bubbly and you're so good at it. I said, but my favorite thing is in one of our podcasts, when we did some icebreaker things was, what's your favorite thing? And it's like total silence.
I think
Yeah.
I think that's it. It's like I have gotten good at what I know I need to do
Mhm.
in those settings, and you
Yes.
too, right?
Yes.
But it's not what comes most naturally to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do, back to the take a speech class because
Yes.
I never ever would have been able to be the person I am now if I had not done that. And it was in college because they didn't have it in high school in my day. So it was, really, really helpful. So the other thing, I guess, a couple other questions, and we'll finish up because this is getting long, and we love
Sorry,
talking.
everybody.
No. So what are your aspirations going forward into the new year and like with Storyglow and that kind of thing? And then tell us how to get in touch with you at Storyglow.
Yeah, thank you. So this year ahead, 2026, I will be turning 40.
Oh, wow.
So
You're
yeah,
much younger than me.
big milestone
Yes.
year. So thinking a lot about like just like personal growth and goals and still just refining. Like I need to exercise more, for sure.
Me,
like
this whole
starting to
year has
lose
been-
strength and all of
Yeah.
those things that women should be
Yes.
doing at this age. But yeah, I think for Storyglow, I would love to continue to just refine and be more intentional about the kind of projects we're doing and really strategic.
Mhm.
I have been blessed that sort of word of mouth, one client has led to
Mhm.
another, and I've worked with some incredible partners and nonprofits in Northeast Ohio all around. So yeah, that's probably what I'm thinking for the year ahead. And we do have anybody that's listening to this, we'd love for you to go to storyglowstudio.com. If you go /freebie, we have our story database on there. So this is something that we create for clients so they can learn to do more on their own, right?
Okay.
As we're capturing things in real time. We all know, if you're on any kind of social media, you're seeing how important that is. And there's definitely a sense of real faces, real voices, and you just can't recreate that content,
Mhm.
right? Like if someone comes and drops off this major donation, if you don't take the picture in that moment, you're not going to have
Right.
it, right? And you probably don't have a professional photographer over your shoulder
Right.
every moment of every day. So getting confident in doing those things, and then also just keeping it really well cataloged. So we've built a database that allows people to sort of link to, keep clear folders on, so that when you're thinking about what do I do for my end of year appeal,
Mhm.
what should we be asking for as part of next year's annual event?
Mhm.
You can go to that list and have really clear answers and speakers and folks that you can call on to tell this story in a human, memorable way.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm going to check that out myself. I didn't see that part of your website, so I will.
Please do. Storyglowstudio.com/freebies. That's one of my other goals, I think, for the year ahead, is just to be more on top of my own marketing
Mhm.
and using some of those same techniques
Yes.
I'm teaching nonprofits, but to say, hey, like keeping contact with our
Mhm.
client base and letting them know what we're up to or things we're seeing, trends we're
Yes.
noticing, thought leadership around some of that.
And that's so true. And that's why I hired Dana, because you're right. When you own your own business, you are selling and you're doing the accounting and you're doing the actual work
Yes.
and you're trying to be out networking and those kind of things and social media and all those things. I was like, I cannot do it all
There
anymore.
aren't enough hours in the day.
There really aren't to keep up with it. So I think, another consultant or whatever you want to call it, service provider that, is valuable because I'm all about time. When I said, I'm going to get so many people I know a poster that says, you cannot take it with you. With your finances, but you also
Yeah.
can't take time with you.
No, you
so
can't.
you have to really value that to me above all. So I think that's such a valuable lesson. Anyway, anything else you want to tell us before we close out today?
I'm just so grateful for this opportunity.
Yeah.
I've been listening to you guys and I
Oh,
love
thank
your
you.
dynamic mother and daughter. I know Dana had jobs to do behind the scenes today. So,
Yeah.
but I look forward to getting to know you better.
Oh,
And I'm just
good.
glad, we're in this small Northeast Ohio
Yes.
community, which again, welcome back,
Thank
back
you.
in Northeast
Yes.
Ohio, but where people know each other and they're very, collaborative and passionate
yes.
about what it is they do and care about. And so I think having good friends and knowing
Mhm.
people that can open doors for you is so important, and it's definitely benefited me. And so I'm here for you guys. And I
Good.
just
Thank you.
as other proud moms doing their thing out there,
Yes.
creatives
Yes.
out there, it's just fun to spend time with you. So thank you.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you so much for being with us. And thanks everybody for joining us on this podcast. Stay tuned for more guest speakers down the road because I'm sure you're tired of hearing me and Dana talk all the time. So we appreciate you so much and really appreciate the work you're